All right, guys, it is now 6:05 p.m. UTC, so I think it's a fair time to start BabelFish's AMA with Yago. So hello and welcome all of you DeFi hitchhikers of the galaxy, and thank you for joining us on this AMA. It's been a minute since our last community call at the end of May and the post announcing an incubation period with Sovryn's core team a few weeks after. So the aim of this AMA will be to provide a status report on the protocol as well as on the DAO. Before handing over the mic to our special AMA guest, I'd like to thank all of the heroes of Sovryn and BabelFish for building permissionless foundational tools for anyone to use day in and day out. And I also like to thank the community for your candor and patient support. Looking back at the developments of the past year of lean development at BabelFish, I'm very confident the protocol is in good care and capable hands to accelerate R&D across the DeFi galaxy, which is why now is also a good time for me to step back from my contributions on this project and move on to pursue other initiatives within the Bitcoin stablecoin ecosystem that can potentially leverage the same tools being developed by this community. So I'm very much myself also looking forward to this AMA and to keep building with you all. And so without further ado, let's get started with this AMA. There was a link shared on Twitter. So if you go to BabelFish's Twitter, you will find it there to submit questions anonymously. But also, if you have questions to submit during this AMA, feel free to do so on the CC Questions chat channel. And so I will yield the microphone now to Bitcoin mutant and mutator, Sovryn contributor, and BabelFish supporter, Yago, who will shed some light on the ongoing work of shadowy supercoders involved in the BabelFish incubation. Yago, take it away. I don't know if you want to start with the questions already shared, and let us know if you need anything.
Thanks, DolarCripto, for that great introduction. Maybe I'll start with a quick review of where we stand. So there were two reasons to look to provide BabelFish with sort of like this incubation period in order to assure the ability to move forward successfully in the future. The first was that we had seen that there was talent. There's a really talented team behind BabelFish, but things were not moving forward as swiftly as they could on the development side. And the reason for this, after diving into it a little bit and having conversations with them, discussing and walking through it, was process and focus. And so the first reason was to assist with those two things. The second reason was, as you guys are probably aware, the price of Bitcoin has dropped significantly. And the majority of the BabelFish treasury was in Bitcoin, and with it, the value of the BabelFish treasury has dropped as well. And so it was important to take a moment to reduce costs and make sure that the treasury was preserved, especially during what we expect to be the coming few months, which is, now and potentially a few months more, of the Bitcoin price being particularly weak. In the interim, there were a few key things that were vitally important to map out. One was what were the key developments that needed to happen. Build out that roadmap, spec out those tools, and I think specking out the technology to be built is one of the key things that we have worked with the BabelFish team on, and then develop those tools, and then also analyze what the potential risks to BabelFish are, look to mitigate those risks, and finally analyze the budget and make sure that we have a strong budget moving forward. Now, what has been done over the course of the last few months is there's currently work being done, which is near completion to introduce the new UI. One of the major risks is the potential for a stablecoin, Tether, USDC, any one of them, because of regulatory pressures or something else, to lose its peg. And so in that circumstance, there's the potential for arbitrageurs to try and deposit that stablecoin and drain the other stablecoins. And so a change has been introduced which allows for various protections around that, including an oracle where if the price of a stablecoin drops very dramatically, the system is able to stop withdrawals of that particular stablecoin. I'm sorry, stop deposits of that particular stablecoin with the purpose of withdrawing other stablecoins. And then the third thing, and this is probably the most significant thing and is currently being worked on as the primary piece of work and is also nearing completion, is the ability to utilize pricing curves and pricing weights. So the ability to set different weights for the community to decide how much of each stablecoin should exist within the BabelFish pool, set that as the canonical weight, and then create pricing curves around that will incentivize people to maintain the weighting that is desired by the community. And this is very important because it allows the BabelFish pool to stay diversified. And it also creates a potential revenue opportunity for BabelFish, which can be distributed either to XUSD holders, fish token holders, or both. So those are the key changes that are being worked on now, and we'll see them coming into effect over the next few weeks. And from that point on, there's the question of the broader future of BabelFish, which I think different people have different opinions on, but in my mind, there are two primary opportunities for BabelFish. One, BabelFish represents the primary gateway in and out of the Sovryn ecosystem for stablecoins, and we can expect, we're seeing substantial growth with Dseroy. We're going to be introducing the sovereign dollar soon, and we expect to see a very large amount of interaction between sovereign dollar and other stablecoins. And basically, the way that that's going to happen is primarily through BabelFish. We expect this will also introduce additional revenue opportunities for BabelFish, in that there is the potential to move forward with the original plan of BabelFish, because sovereign dollar will become a lendable and tradable asset on Sovryn. We expect that there will be sovereign dollar pooled within the BabelFish pool, and that can be lent out or used to provide liquidity within the Sovryn ecosystem, which again can generate revenue for BabelFish and fish token holders. So one big opportunity is the growth of stablecoins and the growth of the interaction with stablecoins in the Sovryn ecosystem, driven right now primarily by Dseroy and soon by the addition of the sovereign dollar. And BabelFish is going to be a big part of that. The second opportunity is to use this either on rootstock or potentially also on other chains to create a yield-bearing stablecoin. So to turn XUSD into a stablecoin that you hold, not just because it provides you with additional protections, but also because it provides you with an ongoing yield. And there is currently work on speccing that out, what it would look like, and building a business plan around how that would work. And I think that that could be a very significant opportunity for BabelFish going forward. So those are the two big things moving forward. They both, one of them is like more obvious, we can already see it, like a lot of ZUSD currently already in BabelFish. And the second, the ability to create yield-bearing stablecoin with the XUSD, I think, is still undergoing refinement and thinking, but is potentially a it could be a real game changer. So that's high-level introduction to where we are, where we went through, and where we expect to go. And I think DolarCripto, happy to open it up to questions.
Awesome. Thank you for that high-level overview, eagle-eye view. So cool. I guess we can start in the order that questions were submitted. So these questions have just been pasted on the CC questions chat, and that you guys can see. So the first question that we have are, what are current expenses on BabelFish, and how much runway estimated is left from the treasury?
So current expenses are very low. I'm not entirely sure what the runway is. A new budget is being worked on which will be published soon, and I haven't seen those numbers yet. I'll probably see them with you guys. But my understanding is that they're somewhat under $1 million in terms of value worth of Bitcoin held by the BabelFish treasury right now. There's more than 2 years runway at the current run rate, but that's because current run rate is quite low, and we would expect that the team, now that it's sort of stabilized, will look to grow in the future.
Cool. The next question that we have, and just to add on that point, I know that BabelFish in the past also did. This was when the price of Bitcoin was more than double, but I remember there were also some stress tests there, and the situation was quite nice when when BabelFish decided to go into the incubation. The second question is, will community calls come back? The last community call we had was at the end of May.
Yes, I expect community calls will come back. It's not totally up to me, so I'd be happy to see more community calls as well. Just know that because there's an effort to keep the team very, very lean right now, and because there's an effort to get out a lot of stuff, that everyone's pretty overworked. And right now the two major devs working on the project also don't like to appear in calls like this because they don't want to dox their voices. They're fully pseudonymous. But I expect that that community calls will come back. It may take 1 or 2 months more.
Awesome. Definitely looking forward to that. I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of many others here. Cool. I think the third and fourth question are the same. It relates to when are we going to see a return to DAO activity, whether it be votes or execution of said votes.
So the two next BIPs that I expect will be around these the two upgrades that I described. So one around risk mitigation and the next around creating weighting for different stablecoins and the ability to have pricing curves around them, incentivization of weighting. With the introduction of weighting, there's also going to be the ability, and in fact the need, for fish stakers to collectively decide on the weightings periodically of the various stablecoins. And then once it is further spec'd out, I think there's going to be additional BIPs around lending, probably the introduction of the sovereign dollar as an asset, and then potentially also a plan around the introduction of the ability to have XUSD itself be an interest or yield bearing stablecoin.
Awesome. I think that in a way also that leads us into the next question, which relates to the product roadmap changes. Can you expand a bit more in sort of like the progress there, which will then dictate these potential improvement proposals?
Yeah, I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but if the question is how has the progress been moving forward on the roadmap that I've described, all three of the primary pieces of the roadmap. One, the new UI. Two, the introduction of risk mitigation. And three, the introduction of a weighting system for underlying stablecoins are nearing completion. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the risk mitigation system has already been completed and is waiting for the UI in order to be pushed forward for introduction into the production system. With regards to the UI, I think that the UI, in many ways, for the coming months, may prove to be secondary. We see that the vast majority of users actually are not interacting with BabelFish directly, but with BabelFish via the Sovryn UI. A new UI for Sovryn, specifically focused around Dseroy, sovereign dollar, and stablecoins, is going to be introduced, we expect, towards the end of this year. And so investing heavily beyond what has already been invested in a new UI for BabelFish may be a little bit of a waste for the coming few months, because a lot of that activity can be driven via the new Sovryn app coming out.
Super. So I think all of these updates, sound super exciting, and they, I think make me personally very bullish and optimistic on both Sovryn and BabelFish. If someone wants to contribute to the DAO, to BabelFish's DAO, is there any way for people to do so? Is the BabelFish DAO right now more focused on conserving funds and operating in a lean way? What do you recommend?
Well, I think the big story happening currently with BabelFish is it's doing not insignificant volume and has become, primary channel of interaction with what is currently ZUSD and will become the sovereign dollar. And so I think that Dseroy itself, has anyone on this call tried Dseroy? Sovereign Dseroy? Well, okay, there. Cool, thanks, David. So I would suggest you guys check it out, and I think that sort of pushing and demonstrating support for, I think if the sovereign dollar ecosystem grows, and it has every potential to do so. I mean, it's the most charismatic product in terms of, we've launched it, we see it growing in the middle of the bear market, we see that there's a line of, a queue of people who want to use it, and it has seen, I don't know if you guys have seen the charts, but there's been, very steady growth up and to the right every day in terms of use of Dseroy. One of the protocols, probably the protocol that stands the most to benefit from this because of its strong interaction, is BabelFish. And so I think one thing that would be great to see the Babylonians do right now is help us promote and get the word out around Dseroy, because the more we can see success in Dseroy, the more we'll see success in BabelFish.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of synergy there, and that's where I see a lot of potential for growth as well. Thank you for clarifying that. The next question, it has more to do with it's asking how much fish is circulating and when coin market cap. I don't know if they mean when the fish will be on CoinGecko, on coin market cap, or if they just want to know the market cap. I don't know if you have that information available right now.
I'm not the right person to ask around that. I mean, the market cap is, viewable by anyone. You just multiply 42 million by the price of,
By 420 million, yes.
Yeah, sorry, 420 million. But with regards to exchanges and stuff like that, I think that is something that the permanent, the core team for BabelFish going to look to focus on, and that's a strategy for them to determine, and I think it's beyond sort of we can help in Sovryn with that, but the primary thing that we wanted to assist the incubation period was, which could last some more months, is we just wanted to make sure that the team was moving at pace, that the risks and treasury were well managed, that the whole thing became a well-oiled machine, and was properly utilizing the community and talent.
Super. Just to add to that, I just shared a link to the analytics dashboard that was made by a community member. So you can also look at that. Just take it with a grain of salt. Some of the data may not be, may be missing. Cool. So question 8, there's a lot to unpack here. So I guess it's asking a bunch of things. Let's start with, is the work from BabelFish, increasing the load of work on the Sovryn team? And would this lead to increased expenses on such a community? And if so, why was the Sovryn community not asked if it wants to incur BabelFish? I'm happy to answer just the last part of this question. A lot of the BabelFish core team came from Sovryn, and that really BabelFish, or Sovryn is the origin of BabelFish. That's where it was launched, through Sovryn's origin, literally. And so most of the early supporters have a large share of voice on the direction on BabelFish. As for so that's the last end of that question. That also answers why the BabelFish community perhaps was not asked on this topic. And let me just see what else the question has. Then it goes back to the UI. So I guess the main question is, will this incubation lead to increased load on the Sovryn side?
So yes, the answer is there has been some increased work load for Sovryn. It's been fairly minimal. Mostly, a little bit of my time. John Light has been engaged. Some of the front end devs have been engaged. Dseroy has been engaged. But it hasn't been too taxing. The front end devs right now are helping a lot with the new UI, and BabelFish is paying for that. So BabelFish is paying for the dev hours. So yes, there has been some additional load, but I think it's been well managed and it hasn't proven to be taxing.
That leads me to the next question, question 9. It asks, who is holding authority over BabelFish's treasury? I think just from a security point of view, I don't know if that question can be answered.
Yeah, so there's there's a treasury multi-sig, kind of similar to the way Sovryn has an exchequer. Several members of the core team hold that multi-sig, as well as a couple of sort of third-party, including 2 Sovryn core team members, and that is how the treasury is managed and held. And I also now remember that there was a second part to the last question which I didn't answer, which is why don't BabelFish and Sovryn unite? And I think it's a good question, worthy of an answer. So my sense is that that would be a very poor idea. One of the things that we need to look to do is build out an ecosystem of projects where they're all working together, but the different teams have the ability to have a high degree of focus and dedication to accomplishing very, very specific goals and are incentivized to accomplish those goals in the most direct and sort of clear, unambiguous way possible. What we currently have with Sovryn is that there's a very large number of things that have been, Sovryn generated a lot of excitement and was able to attract a lot of people to want to work on it. There's a core team of just, around 40 people. There's another set of teams like BabelFish, like EviDAO, like a whole bunch of others that are working. And then there's a whole bunch of volunteers who are engaged, some of them on the call right now. But one of the results of this was that as a result, Sovryn has done a lot of things. Like, I can't think of another team anywhere in crypto really that has done as many distinctly different things. Everything from constructing infrastructure, like improving nodes, building fast BTC, building bridges, to building an entire suite of products, everything from trading, lending, margin trading, stable coins, perp swaps, the whole shebang. This is not sustainable. The type of mindset uh, uh, that you need for working on infrastructure is totally different from what you need for working on app layer, is totally different from what you need for working on B2B, is totally different from what you need from working on B2C. And so to my mind, Sovereign as a monolithic project is doing itself a disservice. And what we should be looking to do is have instead an ecosystem of these dedicated teams. So I think bringing BabelFish into Sovereign would be compounding that issue instead of relieving it.
Cool. Thank you for that answer, Yago. I think the next questions, questions 10 and 11, and they've already been answered one way or another, namely who stands behind BabelFish or who from Sovryn has been delegated to assist on BabelFish, as well as what has been achieved so far. That's been answered. I think question 11, why won't Sovryn take BabelFish over? That's what you just mentioned regarding, creating the ecosystem. So then the next question that we have, question 12, it's regarding rewards for fish stakers. Will fish stakers, and this is right now the only option on BabelFish is to stake via governance. Several members of the community have done it. And then if they want to withdraw, they could get penalized. So will they be rewarded? Is there a plan to reward these users?
I need to. I actually I have to admit some ignorance on this. It's not something I asked about. But it is a good point, and I want to go and look into it more deeply. Um, I'm not sure that doing something similar to what Sovereign did in terms of allowing initial yields to be earned in the form of the in-kind token, in other words, the fish token, wouldn't be a bad idea. But in the the longer term, what we should see is BabelFish protocol as a protocol generating revenue. I think the interesting thing about BabelFish as a protocol is assuming we can build amongst these various protocols with Dseroy, with Sovryn Dollar, Sovryn BabelFish, and the various other things, a lively ecosystem. And I think we've started to see a real change in Bitcoin culture. We're seeing, I think, we're seeing a lot of positive signs. The fact that we're seeing growth in the bear market means that when we start seeing growth more generally again, I think we can expect to see very significant growth. So what BabelFish has a really interesting positioning in that if it's able to generate the type of liquidity and integrations with other protocols now in its very early days, that make what it will become basically an irreplaceable part of the ecosystem, and that means that it becomes a defensible protocol. In other words, it becomes a protocol you can't just fork. It becomes a protocol that can capture some of the value that it's created. And that should generate revenue for fish stakers.
So many good details being being revealed in this call. That brings the end to the questions that have been submitted. If you have a question that that's burning in your mind, please feel free to write it on the CC questions chat, or just unmute yourself and jump in as well. We can give it another 5 minutes to see if there's some additional questions. We've been now answering some of these questions for the past 30 minutes. So let's see. Let's give it a few more minutes. Thank you, Yago, for your time and for sharing this. Hi, Dseroy. Go ahead.
Yeah, so who specifically on the BabelFish team is staying around and driving the project, and why are you, DolarCripto, leaving? Is it just new direction, or
Yeah, so I think that question was directed at me. I can take it. So from the team, the tech team remains as is, which is super important. And then it's being, getting some advice and support from the Sovryn team that can help it deliver and ship faster. And then from the community marketing side, again, it was operated in a very lean way, about 3 to 5 people, depending on when you look. Most of the team, it's being shifted. You can rely on Flametail, who's on this call. He's still on this team. I will continue as a member of the community, and so is Hyde for the moment, that we were mostly in charge of community and marketing. Personally, it's just a good time. I feel like BabelFish in 1 year delivered, at least on its first stage, which was to aggregate stablecoins and bring liquidity. There's a lot of stress involved in being an active member of DAO, and which is why I really wanted to thank the work being done by the Sovryn heroes as well as the BabelFish team, pseudonymously or not. And I feel as well that the tools being built, Sovryn and BabelFish, a year from now or less, they're perfect pieces for other products to connect to. So I have a lot of ideas on my mind that I'd like to cook, and I need to take the time to do so.
Got it. And then, Yago, you had mentioned early on the kind of rebalancing mechanism. What's the model for this? Is this essentially just curve with the kind of gauge weights that we determine, or what?
No, it's a little bit more sophisticated than that. There is a sort of spec/white paper. I think we should make sure it gets published as soon as possible. Flametail, maybe it makes sense for you to make sure that gets published.
Yeah, I will, man. I will take care of it.
And do we have an expectation of how long this development will take? I think you kind of alluded to like a couple of weeks, but that seems very unrealistic unless it's like a very simple build out. Like what's like a conservative?
No, there's been work on it now for several weeks ongoing. I'm not entirely sure how long it will take. But I do believe that we are, within weeks. So I'm not saying 2 weeks, but it could be like 6 weeks.
Okay, thanks.
All right, we're going to give it another couple more minutes until 6:40 UTC. So if you have an itch to ask any question, now is your moment. Else we will adjourn the call to let everybody else go back to work.
No more questions? All right. Well, in that case, I think DolarCripto maybe can sign off. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time and for your questions. And if anyone has any additional questions, you can always feel free to DM me. That's it. Thanks very much, guys. It was a pleasure to be here.
It's very helpful. Thank you, Yago. Thank you, Flametail, Hyde, and all the familiar faces here. Looking forward to the next AMA, our next community call. Bye-bye.